existence.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I guess I don't need the headphones quite yet. It's a great summer day. My allergies are really kicking in, which it's not fun. Seems like the older I get, the worse my allergies get. So really excited to be here and talk about compression with you guys. It's kind of is it misunderstood? I would guess, yeah, compression is one of probably the hardest things to understand as a kind of new person, or even, I guess even as an experienced person, compression is one of the things that's really hard to train your ears on listening for, because it's not, like a volume. I mean, it is technically a volume change, but it's a lot more subtle because it's dealing with the differences between peaks and dips and kind of dynamic range, and there's some time domain stuff involved with attack and release. So you're probably listening right now and you're hearing that my voice sounds just it's not very loud, and so I figured this would be a good way to demonstrate compression. So right now I've got some auxes set up here in Pro Tools to get the audio from Pro Tools to you guys, and then also to myself so I can hear. So I guess at this point I will put the headphones on. There we go. And I'm kind of looking at my voice here. This is Tom. This is here we go. This is me. This is an aux. So this is a cool thing you can do when you're recording voiceover or ADR. A lot of people, ADR and Foley mixers that I've worked with will have an aux input, and they use this as kind of a channel strip or preamp almost for their microphone. So they'll have a bunch of processing here, and they'll actually record into a print track like this down here. So just to start off with, let's add a compressor to my voice. You can see I've got a bunch of different types of compressors. There's like the stock Pro Tools ones. There's FabFilter. I really like the Avid Pro compressor. This is kind of a go-to. It's, super simple. It comes with Pro Tools. And the very first thing I'm going to do just to bring the level up is bring the makeup gain. There we go. So now I can see we're getting some reduction on the meter here. And let me see. That's right. This one doesn't tell you. Pro limiter, which has a handy LUFS metering. It says short terms at -23, which is okay, but for YouTube, YouTube really likes to see more. They really like stuff to average around like -16 to -14. So we'll try to get it sort of close. Now, looking at the controls here on a compressor, most of them have very, similar. Let me just add this pro limiter to the stream so I'm not peeking there. So most of them have a set of controls that, starting out, they just don't know what these do. So we're going to go through each one of these, and we're going to look at a few different compressors to see kind of what they do and how to use a compressor in audio post-production to make things sound more professional, more polished, and reduce the dynamic range. That's really what compressors are for. So TJ, yes, the levels are low because I wanted to demonstrate live on the stream what a compressor does, and how to use it during, live stream, or just, during dialogue mixing, or if you're doing a podcast. So you can see I've got nice healthy levels now. And so we're going to go through what each of these controls do. I've already increased the makeup gain quite a bit. This is really just kind of an output level. And the threshold, let's start with the threshold. This is kind of the first thing that a lot of people adjust. The threshold is going to let you know when the compressor kicks in. And the threshold and knee are really related. So if I take this knee down to 0, you can see the shape changed here, and it's become a really sharp break-off point right here. So what that means is that the compressor is not going to kick in until I get to -20. That's it. So if I'm talking here, nothing's really going to happen. And then once I get over, it kicks in. You can see we're getting about 6 dB of reduction as I get over the threshold. So the knee, if you increase the knee, the compressor is going to start kicking in below the threshold point. And the higher the knee, the lower the threshold starts to kick in. And it's not going to kick in full range quite yet. So that is the threshold and knee. They're really closely tied together. So I like to have kind of a moderate knee on my compressors. I really don't want to be compressing material that's too far below the threshold, but a little bit, you know, it's fine. So next most important control, and I like Pro Compressor because they have the two most important controls here at the top. The next one is the ratio. The ratio is how much the signal is going to be reduced when it goes over the threshold. So if I bring the ratio down to 1:1, there's no compression happening at all. I can get super loud, I can get really close to the mic, and there's nothing. It's just not doing anything. Conversely, as I increase the ratio, the further over the threshold I go, the more reduction I'm getting. So it's going to start of gain reduction as I get louder and louder and louder. You can see we're getting 15 decibels of reduction on my voice. So that can be great in some areas. You know, maybe you're dealing with a source that is too dynamic, too loud. You know, people start laughing or yelling all of a sudden, and you want to clamp down on that, then you increase the ratio. However, if you want to hear less compression, I like to go anywhere from like 1 to 2 point whatever, you know, 2 to 3 is a really good ratio. And Master Nelson's asking, will track versus bus compression be covered? Yes, we're going to talk about that too. So threshold and ratio, these are also kind of related because, you know, the threshold is going to dictate when the compressor kicks in, and the ratio is going to dictate how much. You can see I've lowered my threshold and I'm getting a super compressed signal, which is actually lowering the output level quite a bit. So if I bring up Pro Limiter just so we can keep an eye on our levels, you'll see, so Pro Limiter here is going to show us our short-term LUFS value. And the more I compress, the lower the signal. That's the nature of a compressor, is that it basically makes things quieter, and you use the makeup gain to compensate for that. So as I increase the threshold, you can see less compression, less compression. The general rule, if you go on like Gearspace and other forums, is to have 3 to 6 dB of compression. I'm going to call BS on that and just use your ears. Don't worry about numbers. Don't get too caught up in the GUI, the GUI of the plugins. Really use your ears and listen to it, because sometimes more compression is good. Compression can be a great tool for not only taming dynamics, but creatively shaping a single sound, but also how they fit together in a mix. If you're mixing, this is going to get pretty advanced, but if you're mixing heavily compressed material and everything's compressed, then it's like a really great, it can be a grating mix at that point. However, if you really compress one sound, but the other sounds are dynamic, now you can track that compressed sound a lot faster through, you know, the soup of the other elements in the mix. So using heavy compression on one thing and light or no compression on other things is like, it's good. It's really interesting when you start getting to that level of mixing. So, okay. Israel Hernandez is saying, interesting to see how you handle something with a higher noise floor. Yes, that is one of the banes of specifically dialogue compression, but just compression in general, is as you compress, meaning you're you're reducing the loud sounds. So you're squeezing things down to be a more confined area of dynamics. You know, maybe instead of going all the way up to 0 and all the way down to -60, you're going to like -10 and -40. So as you do that, it does have the psychoacoustic effect of bringing up the noise floor. So I'll show you what I mean. I have a little bit of fan noise from my stream box that I use. So I'm going to just increase the makeup gain to compensate for the reduction that's happening, and you'll hear, so I'm going to be quiet so you can hear the noise come up. Now I'm going to lower the threshold and increase the ratio to get more of like a TV announcer. Yeah, there we go. Now we're getting 18 decibels of reduction and short-term levels of -20-ish or so, just with normal talking. And you can hear as I start, it's not quite whispering, but it's that Valley Girl growl talk that I really hate. It's still, you know, pretty. It's only -22, and as I get really loud and I start getting super animated, then it is really kicking in, super compressed. And yeah, this is what a lot of TV shows, this is what I grew up in. NBA Finals is just a slammed compressor, and it's not a great sound, so we're going to back off it. But you could probably hear as the makeup gain increased, then the noise floor came up too. So if you're dealing with production dialogue where there's noise, compression can actually make things sound worse because you're bringing up the ambient noise of the recordings. You can combat that with some noise reduction, but you know, my approach with dialogue mixing in general is a lot less processing than what I hear in a lot of mixes. So that also then means that I'm generally using less compression because I want to manually tame the noise or control it without nuking it. I don't want to completely remove the noise. And there's like philosophical reasons for that I won't get into. But yeah, so you can bring up the noise floor with the compressor, and that's not great. Okay, so we've dealt with threshold, ratio, knee. This section here in the middle, we talked about knee, but attack and release are pretty crucial. For dialogue recordings, anywhere from 5 to 10 milliseconds is a pretty good release, or attack. This is how quickly the compressor responds to a source. So with a higher attack, this is probably the hardest thing to hear, but the gain reduction shows you what's going on. With the higher attack, if I lower the thresholds, you can see the compressor has a delayed response. So individual consonants, like the first thing I say, comes through, and then it kicks in and knocks it down. So not great. If you lower this to like, that's going to be too much threshold. If you lower it to like 5, well, actually that's good. Let me lower it all the way down to like milliseconds. And then, so now it's acting kind of like a limiter, basically, where it's just bam. As soon as there's signal, it's clamping down. So not super great. And also, this negatively impacts intelligibility. So there's a study, I'll try to find it and share it on our Discord for the channel members, but there was a study done on dynamic range compression and how the attack time lowered the audience's ability to make out what was being said. Super nerdy stuff, very interesting, but just be gentle with your attack. I find that 5 to 10 milliseconds for dialogue is really nice. If you're doing bus compression for like, you know, a stem, like if you're for some reason doing bus compression on a music stem or your dialogue stem, you can raise this up so that it gives it more time to respond and kind of acts more like a gentle leveler. So yeah, a release time is how quickly after the signal comes back down and is below the threshold, how quickly the compressor releases the reduction. So I will, again, first let me bring the threshold down, and we're going to watch this gain reduction meter. So we're going to bring this all the way down. So as soon as, well, not as soon as, 1 millisecond, within 1 millisecond of the signal going below the threshold, the compressor has basically turned itself off. So now if I increase this to like a second, you can see it's waiting for a second. It's kind of cool. It gives you this little hockey puck to show you what it's doing. So as I stop talking, the compressor is taking a second and a half to stop reducing the signal. This can be really useful for, like, if you're using a sidechain compressor to duck music as a music ducker under voiceover. That's kind of a cheat code for quick and easy documentary or commercial mix. And yeah, it's good for that. But for dialogue, 100 to 200 milliseconds is usually kind of where I like to pocket things. You can see straight up and down 10 and 150. To me, these are great settings for dialogue. Depth. Not every compressor has this control, but, and forgive me if I have some sniffles and stuff. Like I said, my allergies are just, I don't know what it is about being in your 30s, but allergies seem to be a big part of it. Okay, so depth. This is how you're basically clamping the amount. So if you only want it to compress 12 dB, 12 dB of gain reduction, then you can set it there. You can set it to 6 if you want. You can see it gives you a little shelf here. So it's never going to go, even if I get super loud, it's never going to compress more than 6 dB, which is good if you want some dynamic control, but not, you want to let people yell and let them be loud. For a film where the dialogue can be very dynamic, this depth control is a great thing to have, because it allows you to have compression at moderate volume levels, but let the really loud stuff cut through. And generally, when the dialogue is loud, there's other loud things going on, like music or sound effects. If they're yelling and they got an M16 and I can't keep them back, Sarge, there's other things going on. So using that depth to allow signal to cut through is a really good workflow to have. So, and then dry wet mix, this is like, let's say you want to compress a lot. Oh, let's turn the depth all the way down. There we go. Okay. So you want to compress a lot, but similar to the depth control, you also want to have some of the dry signal come back through. Then you can do that. You can, adjust this to where there's more dry signal coming out. You can see on our meters, 100% dry is no compression. If you go down to 1% or 0, all wet, it's all compressed. This takes into account the makeup gain and a bunch of other things. So if you're using a lot of makeup gain, this dry wet mix is not going to do hardly anything, because the dry signal is so much below the wet signal. So that is kind of an overview of controls and on a compressor and how they interact with signals. I'm going to go through some comments now just to see what we got. Okay, Israel has a bunch, which is good. Very engaged. What if you want to do a TV FUTS, but the source has a high noise floor and you want to compress? Good question. On my FUTS tracks, have a super slam-in salmon compressor. I mean, it is like threshold at -40 and ratio at like 20. Something like that, and it's super compressed. And then I have an EQ on there that's doing a lot of work. So if you want to do that, what you should do is use a little more noise reduction than you normally would on the FUTS. The other thing you can do is lean more into the EQ and less on the compression. Sometimes that sounds better. Oliver asks, just delivered a documentary with a lot of whispering. Was hard to hit the broadcast spec tips without killing performance. Yeah, that's a tough one. I would probably just increase the volume of the whispering. It's going to be especially, well, if it's on screen whispering, you know, you can see the person's lips moving. You can get by with a little less volume. If they show the whispering and then they cut away from it to B-roll, you know, or nats or archival stuff, that can be really tricky because seeing somebody's lips forgives a lot of bad mixing or bad recording. If you can lip read, we subconsciously do it. Talk. So if you have a lot of on-screen whispering, then I would say just make sure the music and other stuff isn't covering it up. If it cuts from whispering to audible whispering, but you're seeing other stuff, you have to bring it up, and quite a bit probably, and really be careful about levels of other stuff. As far as hitting spec, yeah, you'll just have to get loud with it. But a more present TV futz, not too pinched and realistic. Yeah, so then for a TV futz, just EQ a little bit. I'll kind of show you. Actually, I got an EQ in here, and I'll show you what that would sound like. So my TV futzes, if it's for a flat screen, I'll turn this to 6 dB per octave, and I'll kind of do this kind of sound. Actually, that's too much. There we go. So with the 6 dB per octave roll off, you are mimicking small speakers. You know, there's some bass, but it's gently rolled off. So that's kind of how I do it. Good question. What else we got here? So this is from Hans. Hans, I hope you are German. That is my birthplace, but I speak no German. What would you say is the difference between compression for film and compression for a TV documentary? Well, obviously the TV documentary, you're going to be doing more compression because people are going to be watching it in their houses. I mean, even films these days, like, there's still theatrical releases, but most people are watching at home. So I would say nowadays the differences are a little bit less, but films tend to just be more dynamic out of deference to tradition, I would say. So I don't want my film mix to sound super squished, but my mixes on a film are probably more dynamically limited than somebody who's been mixing for 40 years and they're working on like a big dub stage and they're used to theatrical releases. But to me, that's one of the biggest complaints people have, is too dynamic, you know? So I don't want my mixes to go out and people to I've had mixes go out and had people complain, it's too dynamic. The loud stuff's too loud and the quiet stuff's too quiet. So I have, even for stuff that I know is going to screen theatrically or maybe limited theatrical release, like 500 screens, I will still mix it like I would a limited series or a TV show, high quality TV show, but still a TV show, because I don't want people reaching for this when they're watching my project. I want them to just watch it and engage with the story and not be like volume up during dialogue, volume down during action. To me, that's a slap in the face. Good question. Simon has been super helpful. I need to get back to doing member of the week. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Simon because he's been helping me test something. Let's just say that I will be showing you at the end of the stream. If you guys would like a sneak peek of something I've been working on, then stick around. I did release a plugin called the DXB channel strip. I'll show you that right now. I've been working on, and this has a compressor built in. So if you're, interested in basically a channel strip with some nice high frequency gain and a nice transparent compressor, this plugin is on my website, and it's $30, so pretty affordable. And you've got all the stuff we've talked about with the addition of an EQ and a de-esser. I made this, and there's Pro Tools and non-Pro Tools versions for Mac. I'm still getting up to speed on the PC version. I have a PC, but I have to set it up for code signing and a bunch of other stuff. So it's Mac only for now. And yeah, it's got basic EQ with high pass, low pass, and a high frequency gain to make things real crisp or dull if you want. And then it's got a compressor, which is the thing we're talking about right now, with plenty of makeup gain. In fact, quite a bit. It has a de-esser, so if you're sibilant and you're way too sibilant, you can turn the S's down. And then it has a safety limiter at the end of the chain, which is not user toggleable. It's built into the code to basically keep you from going over. You will not be able to easily clip this plugin. I'm sure if you fed it 50 signal generators at 100 dB, you'll be able to clip it. But yeah, it's really hard to go over with this plugin. And it sounds pretty good, I would say. For a first plugin, you know, I'm pretty proud of it. And anybody who has bought this on my website, thank you so much. I'm taking all of that money and putting it back into plugin development. So even though I'm back to work for the next couple months on a couple projects, at night I'm developing another plugin. And when that one's done, I have plans for other ones. So every dollar I make off of plugin sales is just going right back into development. And I'm doing it on my own time. So it's a little slow, but it's also really exciting. And thank you guys, all the testers too, all the channel members who've helped me test this. Thank you guys so much. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible. So yeah, actually we'll just keep this. We'll keep this plugin on our chain right now. So one downside with this plugin is it is a little bit CPU hungry. You can see here I'm using it as an insert on an aux, and I'm at about 9%. So if I make this inactive, you'll see, yeah. So it's adding about 8%. So this is one downside to this plugin. If you don't have a very fast CPU, then, you know, this might not be, you can ask me for a demo. I can get you a demo of this and just, you can check it out. So my thing with this is I'm, you know, not a, well, I guess technically I am a plugin developer now, but I'm not a very good plugin developer. So I know what I want stuff to do, but you know, the GUI is a little bit ugly. It's called a dialog bus channel strip, so I have a bus in the background. But yeah, these are boutique. All my plugins are, it's not going to be pretty like FabFilter. They're going to be a little bit grungy, but they're going to sound good. So at the expense of hiring somebody, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to try to kludge my way through and you know, make it myself. So yeah, good questions in the chat. Thank you guys. Oh, let's see. Simon says, a mixer said to me once that it's better to do more, let me show you guys this, more limiting than compressing stuff on a drama show. As I've gotten older, I think compression and limiting, like especially creative limiting, is a really powerful tool to use. So you can use, we're talking a lot about dialogue, so you can use a limiter on dialogue to just basically take off the peaks and use the compressor more for leveling. So that I think is a great workflow. And if you listen to older films, you can tell that's happening a lot on them. Like there's more limiting on the dialogue stem or channel than maybe we use today. So I think it's good. And yeah, other than just safety limiters, you know, that is like we're talking about creative limiting, like really limiting the dynamics of something. And really, if you think about it, if you've mixed any music or read about mixing music, there is the LA2A and 1176 trick where you run the limiter first and then the compressor. So that's already being used in music, and definitely, you know, in a film or podcast or whatever, like, sure. Really, there's no rules with mixing, so it's good to figure out your own workflows and what you like. I say experiment. Oh, and use your ears. Don't just look at meters. So good question. Okay. House of Jen, another channel member, says, have you ever come across a situation where a hard knee was needed versus a different knee. Yeah, you know, knee, it's really hard to hear what a knee is doing. So I like to use like a 6 or 12 dB knee on a lot of compressors, but some of them don't have them and they still sound great. So again, use your ears. Let's see. Oliver says, thanks for your reply. I tend to use several stages of compression: channel, boom, lav, and buzz. What is your approach? So generally, I don't use too much track compression unless it's a really fast turnaround, like I need multi-stage compression. I like to use a bus compressor, which is why I built this plugin, because I can mix into it. That's really what it amounts to. I can ride a fader into it, and it's only going to shave off a little bit, and I tend to not hit things too hard. So I really only want it compressing when I get, you know, loud, spiky stuff. I don't want it compressing. I use the faders to do a lot of manual compression. But there are times where you need to use both. You need to use a channel and a bus. Generally, if I do that, the bus compressor has a much softer response. Like the attack is going to be higher, the release is going to be higher, the ratio is going to be down. I've even gone like 1.8 to 1 because I'm really using it for just gentle kind of massaging, or bedding the material in is another term. So yeah, good question. And I hope that covers a little bit of Master Nelson's question earlier. Brandon made it. Thanks for making it, Brandon. So yeah, so that's all the questions we have for now. If there's more, please keep them coming. You guys really drive the conversation in these. I don't want it to just be me spitballing for 60 minutes. So yeah, that it's really nice to hear your guys' questions and input. I am going to, let me just check our Discord real quick and see if there's any shenanigans. I'll show you guys this Discord. I try to pump this every stream just because, you know, a lot of channels have memberships and you don't get much for it. You know, you're basically just throwing money at somebody. You know, it's not very much. It helps me keep doing videos. I was like, dude, I got to do more than just, you know, take money from people, because I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this to help teach and connect with people. So here's our members only Discord. To get access to this, you click join on a video and you will become a channel member. So we have a general text channel, studio setup. It's been some really good discussion about DIY acoustic treatment. Looks like Simon has some nice corner traps here from Amazon. We're talking about Room EQ Wizard, setting up a bedroom studio, which I used to work out of. I need to get back on the member of the week thing. I haven't done this for a while. Questions and answers, really good. This is where a lot of the discussion happens. We have a production sound section, which I used to do production sound. I don't do it anymore. And yeah, there's some really good discussions about like high-end stuff like Kevin uses on his professional sets, and then also stuff like Zoom, 32-bit recordings, all kinds of good. And then this is where the new stuff is happening with the plugin development. So I'm sharing some test installers for Mac. I will later this week, hopefully, share a PC installer for a new plugin, and that's actually a pretty good segue. Would you guys like to see a new plugin that I have a working prototype of? So question for you guys in the chat. If you'd like to see it, let me know. If you're not interested, I will save it for another day. While I wait, let me just go through and see if there's any new questions. Nilesh asks, can you discuss the highly compressed production dialogue? Okay, good. This is a good question. Great question. Can you discuss the highly compressed production dialogue and how to reduce your controller noise? Dude, awesome question. So this happens a lot with radio mics, lavalier mics, body mics, personal mics. What else? Different countries call it different things. But you have a lavalier mic and it's super compressed. I'll show you one that does this guy right here. The DJI mic 2. which I really like for YouTube stuff. The signal that comes out of this is super compressed. I mean, it's like, you don't need to add compression. They're already doing some compression on there. So what do you do when you have a already compressed production dialogue? Let me see if I have an example here. So this is, let me move some of this stuff out of the way. This is fairly compressed. Really, it's super hard to uncompress something that is already compressed. If it's clipped, you can unclip it and it's going to add back some of the peaks. And for that, I'll use iZotope. I'll use the declipper. Barring that, you can't do much. You can artificially, like, you could do probably
mic check 1 2 microphone.
We don't do. I don't think you guys need to hear this. You can do this kind of deal and add dynamics with a fader, you know, and bring down the quiet stuff and bring up the loud stuff. But if the signal is compressed, like it's fat, it's super dynamically range limited, there's not too much you can do. Even with an expander or an upwards compressor, like it's still not going to restore the dynamics of the performance. So unfortunately, the answer to that question is you can't do much. So great question. And I'm really sorry there's not like a magic answer for that. Oliver asks, what about matching boom and lav? I understand that you mainly compress the bus, but when mixing them together to use different settings. Okay, so this is another great question. Really good. Oh, sorry, I called you Oliver. Olivier. So, again, lavs tend to be more compressed than booms. There's definitely exceptions to that, but generally the lavs, because of the companionship process that happens between the transmitter and receiver, tend to just be more compressed. So that's another reason I really like using a bus compressor, is because I'm not compressing something individually. I am compressing the pair of the mics. And it's similar to using a bus compressor when music mixing. It kind of glues the two audio sources together. So I will use track compression if something, like I said, has a fast turnaround. But generally speaking, a bus compressor with all the mics hitting at the same time gets you a nice, punchy, fat, realistic, not over processed sound. And I will ride the faders with, my hands to manually compress or expand if needed the tracks themselves. So I'm riding into the compressor. So good question. Master Nelson says, can you talk about the role of multiband compression in dialogue and sound effects mixing? Yes. Okay, good. So this is we're getting pretty advanced now, which is good. If you have an audio source that has a weird resonance, some voices have it, some rooms have it if it's a small room. Yeah, certain microphones are voiced kind of weird. Like the DJI mic is a really good example of that. This has a mid-range bump, like 400 to 500 hertz. So if you don't want to adjust that with an EQ, we'll just use this, me talking as an example here. One cool thing about Pro Q3, and I'm sure there's a newer version of it, I just don't like spending money if I don't need to, is you can make things dynamic. So I can have this band be dynamic where it's kicking in as the threshold is reached. It's basically a single band. Well, it's a single band compressor in the EQ realm. So it's not single band like wide band. It's single band. Like it's just compressing this one frequency. You can also set up a de-esser to do the same thing in Pro Q3. So now when the high frequencies, I'm going to exaggerate my S's here, you can really hear the dynamic range be limited because it's super sensitive to signals that are high frequency. And I can bring this back up, and super sensitive, super sensitive, super sensitive, super sensitive. So in Pro Q3, one of the things I like about it is it's super easy to just bam, right click, make dynamic. You can disable dynamics, you can clear them, you can change the shape and the slope. And this is, instead of using a dedicated multiband compressor, I tend to just use Pro Q3. If you have this stuff on your bus, or if you have a multiband compressor on your bus, and just generally all the mics sound very gross, you know, they all have a resonance at 500, you can set that up on your bus. So if I go here, dynamics, yeah, let's use Pro Multi. I can hear that immediately. Yeah, you can set this up to, you know, be really honed in to just that nasty 500 to 800. Here, let's bring the threshold down, and the range can be more compressed, and ratio, bring it up. So, and can, yeah, let's actually bring, there we go. Hey, so now it's just compressing this band, but you can see setting that up took a little bit more time than doing it on the EQ. So good question. Okay, I think, sorry for the sniffle again. I think at this point, if you're interested, I will show you a new plugin that I've been working on. And it's something I'm very proud of, very happy with. So this DXB channel strip here is good. It was my first plugin I ever made. It took me a while to figure stuff out. Obviously I had some help from ChatGPT and the like. And a developer actually who was really kind in helping me figure some of the trickier stuff out that was just beyond my skills. So thank you, Ilya, for your help on this. And this is a pretty, it has a lot of controls. It has 12 controls. The DSP is pretty complicated. It is a CPU hog. This is like a heavy wrecking ball tool with EQ, compressor, de-esser. It's a RMS compressor. It's got multi-stage limiter, very complicated. I wanted to do this because I figured if I do the hard one first, if I do the complicated, difficult one first, then the simpler plugins that I want to make that solve problems that I have are going to be easier, because my whole thing whenever I do a project is I want to attack the most difficult thing first and then learn from that and apply what I've learned to the easier stuff and kind of like not coast, but like climb the peak, and then it should be easier after you do the hard stuff. So this is great. I love this plugin. You can pick this up on my website, and I'm working on the PC version. Well, I haven't worked on it, but I will. It's on my plate to work on the PC version, but I also have a bunch of other projects I'm finishing up, so it might take me a while. But the thing I'm super excited about that I'm unfortunately, like, I shouldn't tell you guys this, but when I should be working on sound effects editing or mixing, I get sidetracked in working on this new plugin. So it's like not quite an obsession, but it's something I'm really interested in, and I'm super happy with how it's turned out so far, and I can't wait to share it with you guys. So let's just check it out. So this is the channel strip, great, sounds good, very usable. CPU hog though, so keep that in mind. Now, okay, I just have to build the anticipation a little bit more. We are talking about compression. We're talking about all these settings in a compressor. Let me bring up this Pro compressor again. And it is, actually, let's look at a different compressor. We'll look at C2. So obviously, if you've been mixing for a long time, or even a short amount of time, you know how to adjust the threshold. You know how to adjust the ratio. You know about attack and release and all this stuff. I don't need to teach you that. You know all that stuff. But there's some big downsides to compressors. One of the downsides is that if the signal is below the threshold, then there's no compression happening. Another problem is that generally compressors lower the output. You can see here in Pro C2, it's lowered my output, you know, 3 dB, 4 dB, whatever. So then you have to use makeup gain to, you know, to make up for the compression that's happening. So compressors tend to not be super intuitive. They tend to be difficult for people to use. And especially if you're in your first 5 years of your career, you are not going to be a compression expert quite yet. You still got a ways to go. So my thought on compression is it should be easier and it should be automatic. You know, like we have automatic, we have AI stuff, but we have automatic transmissions. We have, you know, give me more automatic stuff that we have. There's so many, the phones automatically update their software. There's so many automatic things, and compressors to this day have mostly been left to just be like, well, adjust the threshold and adjust the ratio and the makeup and all this stuff. And yeah, so I included that in Dialog Bus, but the real plugin I wanted to make was an automatic compressor. And here it is. So this is AutoComp, and this is a plugin I've tried to learn from, you know, making something that was ugly and somewhat complicated and CPU intensive. You can see this is adding almost no CPU to my system usage, unlike DXB, which is like 10%. And it is, what is this? How can I explain this to you? There's 3 controls. There's a compression, an output gain, and you can turn the limiter on or off. So this uses the same proprietary multi-stage limiter as DXB, but the compression side of it is quite different. So what this compressor does, this one control controls the threshold, makeup gain, and there's also a, let's just call it a boost, a low volume boost. So when the signal is below the threshold, it's actually bringing it up to really get things in the pocket. And I'll show you what I mean. But the threshold on this plugin is automatic. The threshold is based on the detected RMS of the input. So you're always getting some compression. Even if, you know, you're feeding in a source that's like minus 60 dB, it's going to be, it's going to bring the low signal up enough to compress it a tiny bit and at least make it audible. The other thing that's automatic is the makeup gain. So the makeup gain is calculated based on the gain reduction, the RMS that's being detected. So I think this is one of the only fully automatic compressors out there that bases the threshold and makeup gain on the detected signal input. So the issue that I was talking about, where if your signal's below the threshold, it won't be compressed. It's always going to be a little bit compressed with this. And it's going to compress it based on the amount of compression you have. So I'll show you, if I crank this up to 100, you'll see that even if I'm talking really quietly, it's still bringing the level up quite a bit. In fact, if I even whisper, if I just whisper, it's still right in the pocket. Actually, let's look at the, okay, so this is Pro Limiter. Okay, so now I am whispering at about minus 50 dB, and we can actually see this. I'm going to put another, do I want to do a Pro Limiter? I guess we could do a Pro Limiter on there. Okay, so I am whispering at minus 60, minus 52, and it's bringing it up to 36. This top Pro Limiter is going to be the input, and the bottom one is the output. Now, if I start talking normally, you know, maybe even yelling a little bit, like if I got super excited about this plugin, yay, hooray, it's a great compressor plugin, the short term is still minus 22. So it's really effectively limiting the range, and it's doing it dynamically, and I can be as dynamic as I want, but it still keeps everything in the pocket. So I've tested this on, obviously, geared towards human voice. You know, like I wanted the output levels to basically meet your dialogue spec. You know, if I'm talking normally, it's fine. But then if I start talking like this, you know, I'm very dramatic. I just want to be super dramatic. Yeah, you know, like it's still letting it be a little bit dynamic, but it's only going down to -30 or so. And if I yell or get really loud, not only can I not clip the plugin because the limiter, which I could turn off if I wanted, but it's lowering the output. Great. So, you know, it's a little bit louder, maybe -20 or so, but it's not clipping. It's not going up to like -12, which is ear splitting. And I can just go back to whisper and it's still boosted. So how this works, and I'll bring this back down. The default setting I have for this is about 50%. But how this works is there's a couple things happening. First, there's RMS compression going on, which is determined by the percentage of this control. So the RMS, the signal's calculated. I don't want to give away I got to be careful because I don't want to give away too much of the DSP side of things, but there's an RMS calculation going on. The threshold's automatic, the makeup gain's automatic based on the detected level of the plugin. And the other thing that's happening is there is a dynamic low volume boost being applied. So if the signal detected is below the compression threshold, it's getting boosted. And it can be boosted at, if you go, I'm going to whisper again. See, if I whisper with compression at 50, it's not bringing it up so much. It's boosting at maybe 8 dB. And as I increase this, the boost is increased quite a bit, up to about 20 decibels. So it could be really useful for stuff. Really, this is geared towards people who need to have things be right in the pocket without much fuss, no leveling plugin, no like normalizing your audio clips, or for a live broadcast, you know, if you have a dynamic speaker, let them be dynamic. Don't tell them like, well, sorry, you can't whisper, dude, or watch the yelling. You're gonna, you know, yelling's gonna be too loud for people. No, just let them do their thing. This plugin is going to automatically compress. It's gonna auto comp, and it's gonna do its thing. And if you need to adjust the output gain, for example, I'm doing a YouTube live stream right now. You can see the output is -23, which is great for TV, but not enough for YouTube. Okay, well, let's just bring it up a little bit. And there we go. So now I'm not clipping the plugin. The plugin's not, I can probably clip it if I turn the limiter off, but now I can, you know, have a nice -16 live stream. If I want less compression, but more output gain, I can bring that down to 50%. And then bam. So it's a little less compressed, but it's still loud and it's not going to clip. So that's kind of what I wanted in a automatic compressor. Is I wanted something that sounded good. I wanted something that could be useful for all kinds of different things. And this was really my dream plugin that I wanted to make when I started looking into building plugins. So this, as you can see, it works in Pro Tools. I've tested it in OBS, which will be really useful for live streams. I've tested it in DaVinci. I do need help. I need help testing this. So if you're interested in helping test this, I'm going to stick with the channel members because you guys have supported the channel. So if you're a channel member, go in the plugin dev tab. I'll show you again where that is. If you're interested in testing this, join the channel as a member and I can get you an installer. Probably I'll have an updated one, I think tomorrow. Just say, hey, I really want to test this. I do have PC versions built. So I've built binaries for PC, but you're going to have to drag and drop them. So sorry about that. I still need to make installers for that. And I'm not quite set up for that. And I have other work I got to do. So it's like, do I want to lose sleep over it? No, I want to sleep. I want to spend time with my family. So I can get you a VST3, VST AAX version. But all the Mac stuff is ready. Like I've installed this, I've uninstalled it, I've built different versions of it. And this is kind of the, I would say it's really close to release version. So yeah, so that, like I said, I'm really excited. I think it sounds good. Let me know what you guys think. if there's adjustments, yeah, we'll just turn this into a plugin development live stream for the last 5 minutes. If there's adjustments you want made to the user interface, I feel like the DSP is pretty good. I had to troubleshoot one small thing, which is where at like mid-range compression volumes, there was a 2.5 decibel boost because the interaction between the low level boost and the compression makeup gain. I've got that all sorted out. I've tested this with signal generators, and yeah, it seems to be very lightweight on CPU. Sounds good, pretty robust, easy to use. And I don't want to add more controls. I don't want to have user adjustable, you know, attack release. That's just all hard coded and set. And yeah, I tried to spend a little more time on the user interface and making it look clean, at least, because somebody kind of gave me a hard time in Discord about how ugly DXB was, and you are totally correct. That is such an ugly plugin, and I'm proud of it. I'm proud of the ugliness, kind of like having an ugly truck. But this one I feel like is a little cleaner. And so House of Jen asks, will you include presets? I will not. I can't make a preset for you because it's based on the input signal. So you'll have to look at a meter and adjust the output gain. There's a way to do that automatically, and have basically selections, you know, YouTube, TV, but I wanted to give people the ability to adjust it with a knob so that they can fine tune it, because these two are the salt and pepper here, the compression and the gain. You know, like you can crank the gain up, you can have no compression and crank the gain up, and this limiter is going to keep you from going over. So if you just want pure volume, bam, there's 12 dB of gain, no compression. If you want to have 12 dB of gain, but you also want to have compression, you know, that's, now you can get like into that Mexican radio spot sound. Not good. So yeah. So I could do presets, but I really don't want to, because it's based on how much compression and gain, and like, I feel like this plugin could be used for more than just audio post. Like I've tested this on a bass guitar, it sounds great. Tested it on sung vocals, sounds great. Tested it on a complete mix. It doesn't sound as great, but it still works. Yeah. Yes. Master Nelson says have to have it where the user can type in the amount. Sure, let's test that out. Double click. Let's go 25%. Done. So that's there. You just double click, type enter, and that's how you can adjust those. Other comments. Okay, good. Yeah, so do you use different templates with different compression settings? Nope. Good question. I use one template and I adjust the plugin settings. Hans asks, at what point is it necessary to adjust the dialogue levels with the faders after compression? So I like to ride the faders into the compressor with a bus compressor. And and clip gain. Obviously the clip gain needs to be pretty close. Yeah. So I think I'm going to sign off. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thanks for your patience with me and my excitement of sharing this plugin with you guys. It's been really fun building this auto compressor. Building DXB was awesome. It was such a great experience. I'm really proud of it. If you want to support my further plugin development, pick it up for 30 bucks. But this auto compressor is the one that I wanted to make. I wanted to make an automatic compressor that could handle pretty much anything I threw at it. So I've been testing this for a while now. And like I said, if you're interested in helping me test it, and you're a channel member, just go on the plugin dev text channel and let me know, and I will send you an installer for it. And if you're not a channel member, consider joining, because I'm probably not going to share this with anybody else. And yeah, so I would guess this will be out within the next 2 weeks. I I just want to get a little more. I have a couple more platforms to test it on, and I'd like to get a PC version solid, because a lot of people have asked for a PC version of DXB, and you know, I haven't had time to make that. So for this release, I want to make sure I have that good to go and, you know, ready to release. So thank you guys so much for your support. Big thank you to channel members, especially Simon. Simon's been really helpful. So thank you, Simon, personally, from me to you, for all your help. And yeah, thank you guys for all, you know, watching content, commenting, buying stuff on my website, you know, even just updating me on what you've been working on. It's all great. It's kind of helped me, you know, reconnect with people since I work mostly remote, and really appreciate it. So thank you guys so much, and I will see you next week. I'm not sure if I'm gonna have time to do a pre-recorded edited video this week, because I'm pretty busy with work and I'm trying to finish this plugin, but I will definitely keep live streaming. So I'll see you next Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time. Till then, take care.